Good morning, everybody, and welcome. It's Sunday morning here in London. This is Lizzie and Justin from Third Space. We are live again for the 124th time. Lizzie, I feel unreasonably proud of ourselves every time the number keeps on going up. And I want to say welcome to all of you on this, what is here in London, a rainy, blowy, breezy February morning. So glad that we get to do this and that we get to have so many people with us. Such a joy. And Lizzie, maybe I'll save this for later, but some people have been writing very, very beautiful reviews on our podcast, and I've just seen them this week, so I might read some of them out later so that you can feel and hear what people are having to say about this. So anyway, welcome everyone.
Good morning, everybody. And as Justin says, it's rather breezy. I think breezy is a bit of an understatement. We've had like serious winds during the night and water's come through our windows and all kinds of things here. So it's been rather rough. But I'm very glad to be here as always, and very glad to be bringing this source, which, by the way, so this is the little book that it's from. I don't know if that appears backwards to you, but it's Shambhala, the Sacred Path of the Warrior by Chogyam Trungpa. I don't know if I'm saying that right. And interestingly, this book has been in my house probably, what's the year, 2020, for just over 10 years, because it was the book that Justin, you gave me as one of our coaching sessions together. So this was a narrative you gave me to live like this, which is quite a big ask. But I think it's a lifer. So I've been doing various bits of shambalaing in my life, and yet it's the kind of thing that you come back to again and again and again and again and again, isn't it? So I was looking for something to help us speak about this thing of doing the same thing again and again and again, and the kind of freedom that it brings when mostly it feels like it's going to trap me. And so I found this little piece about letting go, which relates into that. And I love that this book puts different kinds of concepts really next to each other that you wouldn't think go to each other, go with each other. So this is our source, and I already have lots of things to say about it because it kind of is an excuse to say the things I want to say in a way, because it fits so closely with what I'm experiencing at the moment. But I'm going to start reading. So this is chapter 10, called Letting Go, and it's just a paragraph from this chapter in this lovely book. So, when discipline begins to be natural, a part of you, it is very important to learn to let go. For the warrior, letting go is connected with relaxing within discipline in order to experience freedom. Freedom here does not mean being wild or sloppy. Rather, it is letting yourself go so that you fully experience your existence as a human being. Letting go is completely conquering the idea that discipline is a punishment for a mistake or a bad deed that you've committed or might like to commit. You have to completely conquer the feeling that there is something fundamentally wrong with your human nature, and that therefore you need to discipline to correct your behavior. As long as you feel that discipline comes from outside, there is still a lingering feeling that something is lacking in you. So letting go is connected with letting go of any vestiges of doubt or hesitation or embarrassment about being as you are. You have to relax with yourself in order to fully realize that discipline is simply the expression of your basic goodness. You have to appreciate yourself, respect yourself, and let go of your doubt and embarrassment so that you can proclaim your goodness and basic sanity for the benefit of others.
So as we always do, I'm going to read it too. But before I read it, I'm just going to say that, of course, we do this on Sunday morning. And when I woke up this morning, Lizzie, I could feel the very strongest sense of, I'd rather just lie here cocooned under my duvet than get up. Even though there's a big part of me that loves doing what we're doing and wants to do it, there was a really strong pull to stay in the comfortable known of where I was. And I'm going to read this sort of out of that and out of whatever it was that had me get up and get ready and be here. So this is from Shambhala, The Sacred Path of the Warrior by Chogyam Trungpa. When discipline begins to be natural, a part of you, it is very important to learn to let go. For the warrior, letting go is connected with relaxing within discipline in order to experience freedom. Freedom here doesn't mean being wild or sloppy. Rather, it is letting yourself go so that you fully experience your existence as a human being. Letting go is completely conquering the idea that discipline is a punishment for a mistake or a bad deed you have committed or might like to commit. You have to completely conquer the feeling that there's something fundamentally wrong with your human nature, and that therefore you need discipline to correct your behavior. As long as you feel that discipline comes from outside, there's still a lingering feeling that something is lacking in you. So letting go is connected with letting go of any vestiges of doubt or hesitation or embarrassment about being you as you are. You have to relax with yourself in order to fully realize that discipline is simply the expression of your basic goodness. You have to appreciate yourself, respect yourself, and let go of your doubt and embarrassment so that you can proclaim your goodness and basic sanity for the benefit of others.
It's really beautiful just hearing that read to me. And it feels like such a breath of oxygen to read it and hear it, because I think so many times discipline has kind of, well, even in language, like we say, I'm going to discipline someone. Like there's some punishment inherent in the word, just culturally, I think, so that when we think of us having a discipline, we can't help but have these references in our minds. And I feel like with any kind of commitment, my habitual reaction is no. And I've had to learn, and I'm still very much learning, about the paradoxical nature of commitment and doing something and keeping on doing it is not a trap, but it's a freedom. And interestingly, at the moment, I think this is probably my longest time of doing the same thing again and again, both with turning towards life, but also having my little girl. Because every day is eating, sleeping, changing, walking, basically, that's it. And the kind of freedom that I experience to be committed to things is extraordinary. And it's the kind of thing that I'm the most terrified of. So if you said to me, right, Lizzie, we're going to do the same thing every Sunday for 244 times or whatever, which is a little bit in our future now, I'd be like, no, Justin, no, because what kind of things might happen on a Sunday? I might have to go somewhere. There might be other options. And so if I had been told that was what was going to happen, this would have been terrifying. But because our philosophy was just, well, let's begin and see what happens. And all of this has become possible. And we've just kept on carrying on without the kind of burden of projection into what it might be. It's really beautifully working out. And I know that with Vesper, my little one, the worry I had of doing the same thing all the time, and I still have it because she's got a whole life ahead of her where I'm basically in domesticness forever. I get this kind of panicky feeling, and yet my lived experience of it right now is that it's so clearly showing me what to do that I feel really free inside it. So it's like a boundary that I never knew I needed or wanted is here, and it's freeing me to have the boundary rather than trapping me to have the boundary. So that's the kind of realm I'm in. And to have this spoken about as our basic goodness feels so true to me. Like, I know that when I'm doing anything that feels repetitive or like I've done it before, or this is the same thing again, if I can let go in that moment, at least that language means something to me in my own practice, that I can just move, like return to myself again and again, almost feels like the same thing as letting go. And if I can do that, then I can feel free. Like, that's how I know what this passage means inside of me, because I know that if I didn't let go in my practices, it would just be, it is quite torturous, but it would just be torture if I didn't know how to do that.
Such a wonderful way of talking about it, Lizzie. And I'm reflecting, lots of things are happening for me whilst you're talking. And I won't get to say them all, I'm sure. But one of them is wanting to pick up on what you've just said about this practice that we do together, of showing up at 9 o'clock or as close to every Sunday morning, on and on and on and on, and doing and having a form for this practice that's 30 minutes and all those kind of things. So I'm really with you that on one level, making a kind of constraint like that could look like a punishment or a corrective, which goes along the lines of, there must be something wrong with me, I've done something wrong, and if I do this, it'll set me right. And of course, that's really painful to come at it that way. And then also we feel all the ways in which that stops us from doing other things. I could be like here's the one for this morning. It was quite snuggly in my duvet. I could still be in my duvet, but I'm here, I got up, I got dressed, and I'm here doing this, talking to you and to everyone else. But the paradox that you're pointing to, that there's freedom inside the discipline, I think is so powerful, and is so, in a way, it's so subtle to get, that by doing this combination of constraining ourselves into something that we do intentionally, that is meaningful, that matters, which is something that we humans can do, that we can make the choice to do something, and that there's a giant freedom that comes within it. It opens up possibilities that would not have been there before. So the paradox for me is that if I were to read this simplistically, letting go would be staying under my duvet. Oh, I just won't do anything, I'll just stay under my duvet. But actually, for me, that would be the habitual, just going with my ordinary preferences. I wake up feeling like that many mornings. I wish I didn't have to do anything. And so the keeping to a practice and allowing myself to be constrained is a great enabler. It's a proper enabling constraint, because it's like the image that was coming to me whilst you were talking about was like when you get on one of those water slides in a water park, and suddenly you can move in ways that you couldn't move before, because the container of the slide and the water catches you, whoosh, and whizzes you along. And that's what it feels like for me when I find a practice which I'm willing to constrain myself in, as long as I really do what Chogyam Trungpa asks us to do, which is so difficult to do, which is to inhabit it fully, knowing my own goodness in the middle of it, rather than inhabiting it as if something terrible were happening to me.
Yeah, and to take your analogy of the slide, Justin, as you said that, I was thinking there is a way that I've definitely been on those slides where I've been trying to get back up the thing again because I'm scared or I don't want to let go. And if I don't let go, the whole thing is torture until it's over. But if I do let go and I let myself be taken by those things and join in, like have myself be in the flow of it, whatever the it is, and letting go of wanting anything else other than to go with it, it becomes a joy. But to resist it or to try and have it not be that way is to suffer it.
Yes.
I was just imagining myself coming down those really steep slides at, like, the end of the gentle one, there might be like a steep bit or something, and I always think, oh, I want to go back up now. I want to go back up now. And I can think I want to go back up now for the whole time I'm going down. And then it's over. And all I've done is thought, I want to go back up now. And And in a way, that's kind of like, that's what practice can be. It can be, I don't want to be here, I want to be somewhere else, I don't want to be here, I don't want to, and then it's over. And all you've done is been the I don't want to be here energy, which is just horrible. And why would you ever want to keep doing that as well? So it's like a self-fulfilling thing, that the more I let go in the practice, the more the practice feels possible. But the less I let go, the more torturous it feels.
Yes. It's why I think that it's a lovely sort of fractal, recursive, something, the same thing inside the same thing that we're doing with Turning Towards Life, because it feels to me that our topic is turning towards life, which is finding ways of talking about the ways in which we turn away and how we might come back. But the practice is also this.
Yeah.
And that inside any practice, I've really been experiencing this with my swimming, which I've talked about here a lot, because the water's cold again, it's 5. And I've been practicing going into it like I come into Turning Towards Life, or like I might do with a water shoot, which is I'm going, it's here, I'm up to this, I'm not stopping, and I'm not going to go. That the real catch for me with practice is not doing it because I don't feel like it. And that's the bit that feels like it might be a punishment or a trap if I come at it the wrong way. But actually, it's a great freedom. I am doing this whether or not I feel like it. So I'm not trapped by my preferences. I'm not trapped by the current feeling. I'm intentionally doing it. But then I get in the water, and I'm guessing it's different how this goes for all of us. I'm realizing that I'm pretty well practiced in having a sort of bodily move of tuning out and checking out, which is my way of dealing with not wanting to be somewhere. And I can be in this super cold, super fierce water, and my body is like full on with the feeling of it, and I'm gone. I've disappeared somewhere. And I catch myself thinking about, I'm swimming along, and there's ducks and geese and sunshine or wind or freezing cold water. And I'm thinking about, I don't know, filling in my tax return or something, which I think is a way of doing what you're doing, which is it's a sort of really subtle, I won't be in this. And then the practice gives me also the chance to come back.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's also, it's sort of built into the structure of practice like this, discipline. I love that the word discipline is also like being a disciple. Yeah. It's is really following something. That practice keeps on affording us the possibility of undoing the prison of our own trying to escape. So we get to do it I get to do it when I don't want to get out of the duvet, but I do. I get to do it when I don't feel like going in the water, but I do. But then I get to do it when I'm in the water and I don't want to be in the water, and I've checked out before I even realized I was checking out, and then I get to come back. And the containing form of the practice, of the discipline, the practice affords this great freedom, because it is an amazing freedom to come back and to find myself here.
Yeah.
Like I get to do here.
Yeah.
With you when we're having this conversation.
And the very form of it is like a permission to return, because it's something to return to within the form. Like if I'm consciously doing something, and as you say, I mean, my mind is completely bonkers. I can be like off having a conversation with like Angelina Jolie about something, or I don't even know, obviously, Angelina Jolie, but I just imagine what she might say if I said that, or my imagination is wild, and it's great, but it doesn't really kind of bring me what I yearn for, which is presence and fulfillment and really being here and knowing what this life is. And for me, turning towards life is also turning towards this life too. Like, I am a piece of life. What is this piece of life? And through practicing and being conscious of what I'm doing and how I am in that practice, I get to return. And even if I'm completely away with the fairies and completely out to lunch in my practice, because I'm practicing, there's a place to come back to. It's not just a never-ending load of old gobbledygook. That there's a return that's possible because I've consciously declared that this walk is a practice, or this nappy change is a practice, or this going to bedtime is a practice, this bath time is a practice. Like there's something in it by making the declaration of the enabling constraint, like you're talking about. It's like within that I get to return a million times, that allows me to go off with the fairies and it not feel like a punishment, because that's just what the practice is for. So I'm not hurting myself or beating myself up for going away, because I've put this thing in place that allows me to return without feeling like, it's like I know what happens in a practice is that I go away and I return, I go away and I return. So because I know that, it's a place to do that. And it doesn't matter that I've gone away, because coming back is what the practice is intended for, and it's always available. And by making that declaration, the ground is set for me to return. So it's very kind to practice as well, because it allows you to be totally checking your tax return when you're looking at a duck or whatever. And that's what the practice is for. So it's okay.
I love, really, really touched by what you're saying, Lizzie, about the kindness that there is in the discipline of a practice. And I suppose that's what Chogyam Trungpa is trying to tell us. He's trying to say, don't look at practice as if it's a punishment for your badness. Look at it as a kindness for your goodness. And it's striking me right now that the very act of turning towards life is to constrain ourselves in order to be free in our own lives. Because in order to turn towards, rather than to just go with whatever's happening, which for most of us, I think clearly for you and me, as we're talking, I think for most of us, the just going along with what's happening without the discipline in it is very often a fleeing. It's a turning away. So our coming back into our lives is this exquisite combination of freedom inside discipline and discipline inside freedom. And they look like they're opposites, because they are, but when they're held together, one inside the other, when we're prepared to bring one into the other, we find that there's a much deeper kind of freedom in the midst of things.
Yeah.
And it's such an interesting, for me just right now, interesting thought, powerful thought, that very often what I take to be freedom is actually a kind of constraint. The sort of habitual freedoms are ways in which I lose myself.
Yeah.
And the sharpness of making a choice to swim or get up in the morning to do this, or walk or meditate, or, like you're saying, do domestic things, wash the dishes intentionally as a practice, rather than being off somewhere in my mind, to choose, to make the act of choosing, which is always also a kind of constraint, is the path right back into the fullness of life. And it's the one that's available to us humans, because we're not imprisoned completely. We're not completely defined by our nervous system. So we're not like ants or something who have to do the one thing that their nervous systems and body structure makes them do. And if you're an ant, you don't have very much, I think, freedom to choose to be a whole other way, but we do. Anyway, to actually use our freedom means choosing.
Yeah, totally. And it makes me feel so hopeful when you say that, because it really is true that we have choice. And I'm pretty sure that, like, most humans would agree with us. Like, I can choose to move my leg, like I'm choosing to move it now. I can. And so that opportunity is always there to choose. And when you said domestic tasks, and I was just thinking about washing up, and the amount of times I've like loaded the dishwasher with resentment. And hopefully there's also times where I know that that's what I do, and therefore I can choose, through consciousness about me knowing I do that, I can choose to load the dishwasher with something other than resentment. And I feel like that choice brings us so far, so very far, because I think another cultural something that we do, and obviously in our backgrounds, this may have been a way that we've picked up to be in the world, which is to be a victim of our lives, to feel like you said, I'm just being dragged around and thing to thing, and I'm just a victim of the circumstance I'm in, and the world has got its grip on me. Circumstance, people have got their grip into me, and I'm just literally being dragged by my hair backwards, and I don't even know what's going to come next and whatever. And there's a point where there's always a point, an ever benevolent point, that we could choose to stop and find out what my consciousness might wish for me right now. Like what might be different than this, that would be generating a different kind of way of being in the world. And to me, that feels like the greatest hope, because I know that however bad my life feels and however difficult it gets, I can draw on this choice. I can draw on practice. I can draw on consciousness, like me being conscious of what I'm doing, how I'm being. And I can learn to even have 1 degree of more freedom in that moment by making a choice to be conscious about how I'm being in whatever I'm doing or wherever I find myself. So even like in this moment, I'm feeling like, oh gosh, yes, like whatever I'm just about to go into now, which is probably some kitchen domestic thing, breastfeeding, things that are very, very, very ordinary. I can live in my ordinariness through choice of finding the beauty in it, finding the connection in it, finding the presence in it, rather than feeling like I'm hampered and I'd rather be at the cinema, or I'd rather be in the Caribbean, or God, whatever I'd rather be doing, running away. I can choose to be here, and I can choose to bring myself. And as Trungpa says at the end of this, you can proclaim your goodness and basic sanity for the benefit of others.
Right.
And I know that me wanting to be here and choosing to be here is so much kinder and generous and life-giving to the people around me than if I'm just barely suffering being here and I'd rather be somewhere else. So for others, it's such a gift for us all to want to be where we are and to consciously choose what's happening for our experience, because other people then don't have to basically suffer us.
It's striking me that there's a way when we don't want to be in something and we check out, or that it's almost like a kind of it's like a kind of clenching ourselves up and pulling away from life. And that what practice does is it allows us, intentional practice of all different kinds, gives us the container in which we can experience the pulling away and practice coming back, practice the return.
Yeah.
And I mean, actually, just whilst we were talking, something happened for me. I was realizing that I'm sitting in shadow, and I got thinking about lights that I could have so I wasn't sitting in shadow. And then I was thinking about, I was away, and I, whilst you were talking, had to practice coming back. So it's happening for us all the time. But the thing that really strikes me in what you just said that I've never thought about before is that when we're with one another and we are contracted in a way, we're barely bringing our best sanity and care and wisdom and compassion to the world. When we're around people who we can feel are choosing to be here and are prepared to practice the discipline of coming back, when with our friends or our children or our partners or our colleagues or the person who's serving coffee or whatever it is, when we can feel that someone is really committed to the discipline of being here, it gives us a path back too. We get to reclaim our basic goodness and our basic sanity. So this is not just some, doesn't it feel better to be in our lives, which in many ways it feels better and worse, feels all kinds of things, probably more alive. Mm-hmm. But I'm seeing also from what you said, Lizzie, that it's actually a great act of care to others to be committed to practice in this way and to find ourselves practicing it, not when we're held just in the container of our practice, but when You know, when you walk out of the door and I walk out of my door and go and meet people in our lives again, how we really, in order to inhabit the fullness of our own humanity and all that can come from it, we need to be up to this.
Yeah, that's very beautiful. I'm very glad for this source and for this book, and just going to show everybody again. This is Shambhala, The Sacred Path of the Warrior, and it's a very small book and it's a very brilliant book, and I would very much recommend every single chapter in it. And I'm realizing that it's our time to end, and
yes,
I'm just very grateful to be here and to have the conversation, and to know that every time we sit down something unfolds that's truly helpful to me, and that it's very, very, it feels like a gift, really does. I can feel myself changing. I'm letting myself be changed by this every week, and I really invite everybody also to be in that orientation too. It's like, how can we let ourselves be changed by what we hear? And thank you for being here, Justin, and for us doing this. I'm really grateful.
Thank you, Lizzie. I'm going to fulfill on my promise to read a little review that someone wrote.
Yes.
And to say, if you do listen to us on a podcast platform, like Apple Podcasts, for example, and you want to leave us a review or do the star thing, not because simply because it helps this to spread. It's also lovely to hear how people are being touched by this. So that's why I'm going to read this. I don't know who wrote this. Turning towards life is a beautiful invitation into possibility. It's a touchstone through troubled times. And I'm so grateful that we can all be part of these life-giving conversations that Justin and Lizzie share each week.
My God. It's so lovely that just any one person thinks that there's a benefit. Is such a joy. I can't quite believe it. It's very lovely.
So thank you, Lizzie, and thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Bye.